I'm Christine.
And our guest today is Carlin Dickerson. Carlin is a storyteller first and foremost. She believes in the power of language to spread positivity, knowledge, and joy of life. She is the founder of Carlinography, Creative Consulting LLC, and Sun, Moon, and Stars Retreats. And when she's not shooting, editing, or writing, she is most likely eating, traveling, teaching, or practicing yoga. Welcome to our show, The Heart with Carlin.
Welcome, Carlin.
Thank you all so much for having me. My heart is definitely glowing.
So the way that that we know about Carlin is that she's a friend of a friend, and so I had the chance to get to meet you on email and then by phone. And I was just so touched by you. There's something about you that just opens up the heart. And the heart glow, I mean, that's what it's all about. It's about the creative passion that resides within the heart. And you're just so joyful, is the word that comes to me. So I was hoping to get to know you better today, both Christine and I. And Christine had something that she wanted to right off the bat start talking to you about, to ask you about.
Yeah, you are very accomplished. I mean, you look at your portfolio of work and what you've done, and I just wanted to ask about how was your upbringing? Tell us a little bit about that, how you got involved and your story of, following this path and obviously doing a lot of things that you love to do and that you find just joyful. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, and locals know you say it Louisville. You gotta kind of like roll your tongue. It's a southern place, but it's northern Kentucky, so it's a little Midwestern. It's got all of the like talk about heart, like just
Mhm.
some of the kindest human beings you'll ever meet live in Louisville, Kentucky. It's like Southern hospitality to the T and
Mhm.
lots of sweet tea. So I grew up there in like the suburbs, and my mom and my dad were very wonderful humans, and both of their parents on both sides, I was just blessed by, I mean, we call them like earth angels, just some of the kindest, most generous, and most genuine human beings that
Mhm.
I've ever known. And I was lucky to get to call them my grandparents and just learn from them. I had incredible unconditional love my whole life. So it was always joyful growing up. Like I just was raised in a household of love and warm celebrations. Every birthday, every holiday, the whole family came over either to our house or to my grandma's house. Like it's just a very tight knit family. Like even right now, all my family's outside on the beach together, celebrating and just having fun. My cousin's birthday is today. And I was like, oh, I don't want to leave. So I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to do the interview here and you guys just be quiet while we're talking. And they were like, of course. So it's just, it's all love. It's incredible. And even my boyfriend is new to the mix. We've been dating for about like a year and a half. And they just welcome everyone in with open arms. So that is my background.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of how I came to be the human I am, I truly believe it. I owe it all to who I was born to, like learning from a young age how to love and accept everyone.
Oh, that's awesome. It's great that you had such a supportive family and you know, love to understand too around how they encouraged you and, how you found the certain paths of what you're doing today.
Sure. So I will say, I always did have like a very strong intuition, I guess is the best way to put it, but like heart led. So growing up in Louisville, I loved it there. But I was from about 3 years old, a dancer. My parents
Mhm.
put me and my sister both in dance classes just for fun. My sister hated it. She hated it. And by about the age of 8, she was like, I'm not going ever again. Please don't make me. And they were like, okay. But I loved it. I loved the theater of it. I loved the costumes, the makeup, just, and I genuinely enjoyed dancing, and I did love the attention. Like I loved being on stage and performing and the art of it. So I always had that. And then I went into high school and joined drama club, and I was on dance team, and I loved show choir. Like the show Glee was like my dream of all dreams to be in the show choir. And oh, I loved it. So I was just always driven by that. And when I was about 16, my parents divorced.
Mhm.
And my mom's side of the family, it was much smaller. It was just her parents, and they would snowbird, they call it snowbirding. They would spend 6 months in Louisville, and then they had a condo down on Siesta Key in Sarasota, and they would spend 6 months down there. And so I just said to her, Mom, we're going to see them for 6 months either way every year. Why don't we kind of change things up? Why don't we move to Sarasota? I was 16 years old. And I just felt this like strong like draw of I love Louisville. I'm so grateful that I'm from there, but I want to go somewhere bigger and just more. And honestly, now it's pretty creative and cool. But back when I was younger, I was like, this is boring and Midwestern, and I want to move. And so my mom got a job in Sarasota, and we moved to the beach town. And I was lucky enough to get to go to a performing arts school in Sarasota.
Cool.
That's when I started studying musical theater, and just always loved it. Actually, my grandmother, who just passed in April, always kind of encouraged my love of performing and musical theater. I mean, she was like a huge Fred Astaire fan. Funny Face is one of her favorite movies. It was just always, she would do like for fun singing and dancing performances with her friends at her, her retirement community. And she just kind of loved that everyone called her, I was her mini me. And actually I was named after her too. Her name was Carolyn and my name is Carlin. So they kind of wanted to do a nod to Carolyn, but they were going to originally call me Carly, and no one ever did. They just call me Carlin. But yeah, so that's kind of where I've always been in love with the arts, the performing arts. And I will say it's interesting because I do have that kind of like almost imposter syndrome type thing where I'm like, well, I love it and I used to do it, but I don't like sing and dance on stage anymore. So I'm not an artist. Like I don't consider myself a performing artist anymore, but I love it. It brings me joy. Yeah.
At what point did that change for you?
So I was doing it like through high school. Booker Performing Arts High School is what it was called. And it was a wonderful program. It was a magnet school. And when I got there, it was a lot. The competition was a bit more tough than it was when I was at the Oldham County High School drama club or whatever. So I got there and it was sort of a wake up call. Like I originally had said, I'm going to move to New York City and I'm going to be on Broadway and that's my plan. And that's what I'm going to do. Then I went to this performing arts high school and didn't even make it in like the whiz or whatever. And I was like, maybe that's not exactly where my path should go. And I will say it was very political there, which is true of like every, you come in, you're the new girl, you didn't pay your dues. I didn't, so I kind of fell out of love with that part of it where it's like so competitive. Everyone was very cliquey and would gossip about who got what role and all of that. And I was like, man, it's going to be like 10, 20, 30 times worse on the real deal. So it sort of scared me off of it, I will say. And I was like, well, I know there's a reason that I found this path. And it was right about that time that I was looking for colleges. So I actually did tour like Marymount Manhattan College to go for musical theater. And we flew up and visited the school, and it is really cool. And I've always loved the city. And of course, it's kind of a lot of people's dreams to just be in New York City. And that was always my dream. I thought, I'm going to move to New York City and be that city girl. And around that time, I had played like a broadcast reporter in a little play we did in class or something. And I thought it was fun. And I really enjoyed the character. And I was like, maybe I could do this instead of pursuing musical theater specifically and kind of pigeonholing myself. I'll get a degree in journalism, broadcast journalism, and sort of weave my public speaking skills, my presentation, my stage presence into something that's a little bit more responsible, how people start to make you doubt your career choices. And I was like, well, this is a way that I can still perform, but as myself, which I feel I'm actually better at than acting. And that's kind of how I found that. And I just went with it, because I feel like when you're at 18 years old, how do you know what you're going to do for the rest of your life? You know what I mean? It was such a daunting thing, and I'm kind of impulsive, and I was just like, broadcast journalism, it works. It's an answer that people, I can tell everyone, yes, I have a degree and I know what I want to do. Perfect. And it got me to the University of Miami. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that's impressive determinism for you. I mean, that you would be so determined as to have your path laid out in front of you and go for it. So how did it go?
Well, it was wonderful. I mean, they have one of the best. Basically, what I did was I had already moved to Florida like a year and a half before I started college. So I said to my mom, I do actually want to stay in Florida for college. After that, the University of Miami was the best program for broadcast journalism in Florida. So I just said, perfect, I'll go there. Luckily, and praise all of the heavens, I got many scholarships. Otherwise, there's no way I could have gone, because it's a private university. But I got a president's scholarship and things that really, really helped, and a few loans. And I was able to go. And it is one of those schools that just has a reputation of itself, because it's like a work hard, play hard environment. So the classes were pretty academically challenging, and I've always loved being a student, but then you pile that on top of all the tailgating of football parties and frat parties and Miami beach party. It was a very wild time of my life. And I always like to joke, I know I have a very strong spirit team, because they really kept me alive for a few years. Thank the Lord. Yeah, I made it. It was
So
very fun.
I take it that you would consider yourself an extrovert rather than an introvert?
Yes, I would. But honestly, I'm one of those people, I feel like I'm like an introverted extrovert, because I have a hard time approaching people. I can do it, but I much prefer it. If someone starts a conversation with me, I can talk all day long. I'm not uncomfortable, but I am kind of one of those people that's I'll keep to myself unless there's a reason. Yeah.
So when you're doing the broadcast journalism, did your path change? Because I understand that, well, in your bio, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that you're doing all of the shooting, editing, and writing, and I'm wondering if there was some kind of a twist and turn in the road.
Sure, there definitely was. It was one of those things where you learn what you want as you are doing it. And I once again, I was like, all right, broadcast journalism, this is my path. And I go into this program, which was wonderful. They had their own TV station. We learned hands-on with equipment. They had state-of-the-art cameras that we could rent, and wonderful classes. I took a mobile journalism class and all these fun classes that, I mean, who gets that was my test, was turning in a video. You know what I mean? It was so cool and creative. And I was always intrigued by it, but I was definitely much more leaning towards the editorial, like food and drink, travel news, like that sort of thing, rather than like the hard news and like reporting. It just wasn't what interested me about it. And I was very strongly against any sort of like boundary crossing that reporting sometimes can do, like when there's a tragedy and they'll just, you have to get a bite and you have to get a story out of it and they'll do whatever it takes. I knew in my heart, there is no way I can do that and I won't. So that sort of held me back a little bit in the reporting world. And I took a class and I had a very talented mentor named Trevor Green. He was a professor and just a wonderful human. I considered him a friend in school as well. And it was travel journalism. And the assignments were so much more open-ended. Like it was just like, oh, go interview someone that you find interesting, you know, like human interest pieces. And I did a story about a dog going to the dog beach in Miami, like just like fun, cool stuff that you see and watch on Instagram and Facebook. And this kind of whole new realm of media that has opened up ever since the internet. Versus like the mainstream CNN, Fox, that route, which that's what they were kind of teaching in the hard news classes. And it's a good field and industry, but it is sort of dying for one. And for two, it's not how I consume the news at all. And that was sort of my wake up. So my senior year, I'm graduating and I'm realizing I don't actually want to be a reporter or go work in a newsroom and like pound the pavement and do the one-man band and all of, like, I kept asking all of my friends who had already graduated and were working, how do you like it? What's it like? And they'd be in like middle of nowhere, you know, trying to get their first startup job, and they were miserable. They hated it. I mean, you're covering like sad stories, and I mean, there's fun stuff too, but hard hours. Like I just, all of a sudden I was like, uh-oh, I spent 4 years at this wonderful university getting this degree, and now I don't want to do that at all. And it was kind of one of those moments where you're like, okay, what else? Like, how can I make this work and get creative? Like genuinely get creative with your life, which is, I think, the best way to talk about being creative, because everyone has to get creative with their life choices and what you do with what you're dealt.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that favorite teacher that you had as well. You know, as you kind of think about how you made that pivot, like, you know, talking about those folks that kind of helped guide you or pointed you in the right direction, like definitely not by chance, probably aligned in that sense of, you know, as you talk about the projects that you were having the most fun with.
And yeah, totally. I mean, now that you mention it, it's like so clear to me too, because so he was pivotal. I mean, there was a bunch of other professors that were kind and helpful, but he was the one who told me, you don't have to go and be a reporter. Like there are so many options. You could do freelance videography. He was doing like real estate videography. And then he also was working for like Visit Florida freelance. And he showed me that. And he actually put me in some of his videos just for fun. But my senior year, he offered to allow me to do like an independent study, which was just completely free. I think it was like 4 hours a week or whatever, like some sort of credit situation. And he said, just whatever you want to do, I will be your professor and sign off, whatever you want. And I did, it was called Sunny Side Up. And it was like positive news stories at different brunch spots around Miami. And it was so fun. And I mean, that was like what I did my senior spring semester for class. It was like my thesis. And it was so fun. We had a YouTube and I learned a lot, and I was trying to build it up, and it was hard, but it was fun. And I loved it. Like it was very joyful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how sometimes that you almost need permission to eat, whether it's coming from someone else to say, you don't need to follow that path that everybody expects you to follow, and giving you that openness and freedom to be able to say, yes, I want to try this, or I want to try that. I almost feel like that's when the real spark happens.
Totally.
Tell us a little bit about like what's going on with, your passion projects right now. I know you have an upcoming, very exciting event. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I know I am one of those like creative minds who has like 8 million different things that I'm always working on. One time a partner said it's like you're like one of those clowns that like spins the plates and I'm doing it all. And he's like, you're gonna have to drop some of those plates at some point. I'm like, okay, I put a few down, but now I'm spinning different ones. So I am working on a lot, but it's always exciting. So my biggest passion project right now is called Sun, Moon, and Stars Retreats. And it's me, my sister, her name's Evan, and her partner Esta. And they are physical therapists. And then I'm a certified yoga instructor. And so we're sort of we're completely building it, but we're playing around with like the Western and the Eastern and just a holistic wellness approach. So I hosted one event already in March it was called Peanut Island off the coast of like West Palm Beach. And that one was like a camping retreat that went wonderfully. I mean, it was one of those things where we just kind of said, you know what, we want to do this, so we're going to make it happen. And I'm not even that big of a camper, but we did it. I mean, and everyone loved it. And we did, it was only 2 nights, but we had sound bath, cacao ceremony, of course, several yoga classes. A friend of ours came and offered acupuncture. What else did we do? It's also one of the top snorkel destinations in America. So we had snorkeling, there was bioluminescence at night, and it was a full moon. We did a full moon ritual as well. So just marrying anything that feels like natural, just the joy of nature in general, and going along with how we can heal ourselves is what I really am passionate about. And I even said in front of the group at the end of our retreat, I said, I am not a healer, although I am going to get Reiki certified and kind of lean more into that. But as a yoga instructor and a retreat leader, I don't consider myself a healer. I'm opening a space for you to learn what you need to be able to heal yourself. Whatever you can take away from like the meditation that worked for you, or learning about sound healing, and I'm really interested in that, and like playing your frequencies at home. Like everyone has access to these things for free that we all can practice, and we're all learning them together.
Yeah.
So
That's
can you
what-
give
yeah.
us the details again about
Sure.
when it is and where it is?
Yes. So the next upcoming retreat is on Siesta Key, which is in Sarasota, which I want to talk about Sarasota too, but let me finish the details first. It's June 22nd, which is the day after the summer solstice and International Day of Yoga. So that was intentional. We're celebrating summer for sure, and yoga. And June 22nd through the 25th. And it's called Adult Summer Camp. So the whole idea was like, how come kids are the only ones who get to go to camp and have this like wonderful experience where you get to do fun things and meet cool people that you otherwise wouldn't meet? And we're like, you know what? They shouldn't get to have all the fun. Like we can create that. And we actually dreamed it up with Tessa. We were all sitting on the beach and we were like, remember when we used to go to summer camp and it was so fun? Like, I wish they had that for adults. And then I was like, well, let's make it. So it was adult summer camp we've married that with like inner child healing. So we're doing all kinds of like fun in the sun activities, like body painting yoga, and then kind of having more healing moments. Tessa's going to offer acupuncture. We're going to have a whole like inner child journaling moment, and just sort of remind people of the fun and like the lightheartedness of healing. It doesn't all have to be so serious. And then of course, just teaching them simple things like meditation, yoga, qigong, sound bath, all of that. Good.
Sounds wonderful.
stuff. Yeah.
And
And we'll be on the beach as well. So it'll just be like a vacation for anybody I'm very strong believer of like, everything is optional. Please enjoy your retreat however you want to enjoy it.
And Tessa Nagel is our friend in common, our
Yes, yes.
beautiful friend in common. And she's an acupuncturist in Sarasota. How wonderful. Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds really, really great.
It's so exciting. It's our very first like real retreat. The other one was camping, so it's a little different. And yeah, so we're just building up, we're spreading the word, and we are, as I said, like learning as we go too. Because I didn't want to, we have the foundation of I'm a 200-hour certified teacher. They're both doctors of physical therapy, so we know what we're talking about. But in terms of like building a business, of course, it's a little bit overwhelming and we're learning a little as we go. And I just didn't want to let it stop us.
Yeah. Yeah. Passion first. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
I'm like, whatever else happens, we'll figure it out. But so far it works, like we're just learning and growing, and it'll always be an evolution. And you meet people who you talk to about it, and sometimes they're like, oh gosh, and how are you doing that? And what are you gonna do? Or what, they get like concerned for you, and you're like, I'm not worried. Don't worry. Don't worry for me. Just be happy. we're going for our dreams,
great.
Yeah.
Great. And I would like for you to show us the website for your Sun, Moon, and Sun, what is it called? Sun, Moon, and Stars retreats. But can you, okay, go ahead.
You want me to stop it, or should I
No,
keep
no,
going?
go ahead. That's great.
Okay. So here's the actual website. And it's just something I threw together, to be honest, because I was like, okay, we need a website. Click, click, click. You know what I mean? Like, let's make it happen for now. And I like it.
Fantastic. Oh my God, you're kidding.
Thank you. But yeah, so that's the little reel. And then if anyone is interested and wants to learn more about the retreat and or buy tickets, you simply click buy tickets and it'll take you to the place where you can reserve, and you can kind of see like we've included what's all included, the location, and just some information. And of course, everyone can always reach out to me if they have any questions or want to know more.
That seems great, like a good time with friends, to get a good group of girlfriends, boyfriends, all sorts of friends coming in to take some time out. Is this good for like beginners or all levels?
Totally. All levels, all bodies, everyone is welcome. We want to stress how like inclusive we are, because we are based out of Florida, which is a little scary right now, but we are just embracing our joy and we have a protection bubble around us. We're completely safe. We're completely supported here. And Sarasota, I'm just seeing as I wrote this, Sedona by the Sea. So Sarasota is this wonderful community where they call it Sedona by the Sea, because there's actually an energy vortex off the coast of Siesta Beach where crystal quartz is flowing up onto the sands there. So the energy vortex is about like 2 or 3 miles off the coast, but then it pushes this beautiful white crystal quartz sand up onto Siesta Beach. And it has obviously some very powerful healing qualities. So it's super exciting. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's funny how I found out about that, because I was talking to a friend who's a producer, and I was saying, and my boyfriend's a travel nurse, and I was saying, I hope that he goes somewhere really cool and spiritual like Sedona, Arizona. And she was like, well, you do know that you live in Sedona by the Sea, right? And I was like, what? No, I didn't know that. And she's like, yes, Carlin, there's an energy vortex in Sarasota. And it's one of the most, like, there's so many like tarot card readers and psychics and mediums and new age shops, and they just gravitate to Sarasota. So super cool little fun fact.
Yeah. Because I have my little crystal too, one of my clear quartz crystals.
There you go. I love it. And I have my little emerald here. It's my birthstone.
And you also have your tea with you today, right?
Yes, I do.
So I would like to backtrack a little bit, because I'm still kind of stuck in your story about school. about finishing college and deciding that you didn't want to go into the broadcast journalism that you'd taken all those years of study in.
Yeah.
So what did you do for your first job out of college? Where did you find work?
Yes. So once again, it was a human that actually guided my path. So I graduated, and I was dating a very nice boy at the time who was from Greenwich, Connecticut. And his plan was to move back home, and he had a finance job lined up in Rye, New York, and he was gonna be in New York. And I was very strongly against, like, I'm not just gonna move there and follow him just to move there. But I wanted to work in like digital media. I thought, okay, well, I don't get my news through the television, but I do get my news through Instagram, through BuzzFeed, like Bustle, all those like popular, fun, kind of up and coming media companies that changed the game. And so I started applying to like every single digital media job that I could find online, and not hearing anything back because they're huge companies. And obviously every young person wants to, if they're doing that sort of media or journalism, wants to work there. They're huge names. And they all have their headquarters in Manhattan. So I was visiting his family in Greenwich, and his mom owns like a really cool travel blog. It's called She Buys Travel now. It used to be called The Traveling Mom. But she was super like supportive of me and my journey. And she was like, you know what, Carlin, you just need to print your resume, take the train into Manhattan today, and just literally pound the pavement and just see if you can meet somebody in one of the offices and just get in front of somebody. And I was like, okay. And of course, like every time I walked into the office, I was so nervous because that's like pretty ballsy, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot different than clicking apply, you know what I mean? Like, but I did it. And I was in the lobby of BuzzFeed and doing my little spiel of like talking to the receptionist, like, is there any chance I could leave this hard copy or talk to anyone? Would anyone have the time of day? And he was like kind of saying, sorry, we don't really allow that, but like, good for you. And this man to my right, like overheard it. And he was this British, like bigger than life character. His name's John Vincent. And he was there for like an interview or something. He was like, I don't work here at BuzzFeed, but I'll take your CV, because he was British. And he took a copy, and then he called me the next day, and he was the CEO of a fast food chain called Leon Restaurants. And they're like London based. They have around like 70 restaurants in London, and they have a few all over Europe. And it's like, they call it naturally fast food. So he calls me up and he's like, I truly believe that there's a reason we were both in the lobby at the same time. Like the universe sent me to you and you to me. And I would love for you to, we're about to open our first American Leon in DC this summer. And I just believe that you were meant to be part of the team. So I'll fly you to London. And if you like Leon, then you can join the team. And I was like, okay, free trip to London. And I love food. I've always been a foodie. Like I was gravitating towards the food scene of like journalism and enjoyed writing about food, talking about food. Just finished covering all the brunch spots in Miami from my personal project. So I flew to London. I did love the team. They were all about health food, which was really cool. They were about changing the fast food game. They said, like, why can't fast food be good for you? It was so unique and interesting. And it was like very startup mentality, very like scrappy, learn as you go, figure it out. And I enjoyed it. It was just so much fun. So I moved to DC. That's kind of how I ended up in DC. And that was my first job. It was on a restaurant marketing team.
You're kind of born under a lucky star.
I know, I do.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, my mom always joked, like I was young and I'd be like, I'm gonna make that boy my boyfriend or whatever. And she'd be like, sure enough, there you'd be with your new boyfriend or whatever. Like, I definitely kind of have like, ambition or whatever you want to call it, where it's like a drive, and that once I know what I want, I will go for it. And there may be bumps and curves, but it always kind of works out.
And so, I know that you're still very young, and I understand that after you finished this job, or it had something to do with COVID changing everything for you. What can you tell us about what happened?
Sure. So yeah, so I lived in DC for about 3 years and
Oh.
love that city. It's a wonderful city. It's
Really?
full of culture and so many activities to do. And that's where I got certified as a yoga instructor. So I made many friends through yoga, and I was living such a wonderful life, doing my marketing job, my yoga job, going out with friends, and then COVID hits. Okay, so 2020, everything's shut down. The restaurants are all shut down. I was living in a studio basement apartment, like right on U Street. It was a wonderful location, but the apartment itself was dungeon-esque and tiny and roaches. Like, it was not great. So to be stuck in there was horrific.
Oh.
And I was lucky enough to be able to remote work. I wasn't laid off initially, and I went home to Florida for several months during like the worst of it. Came back in around June, and then from June through December continued to work with Leon, but they were going under. Like, they started to let a bunch of people go. By the end, I was the last person on the marketing team left, and it was so difficult. And just being in the city with everything was closed or boarded up, that actually, because of like the January 6th thing that happened, things got like very scary. It was like military everywhere. Like, it just didn't even feel like the same city at all. And it didn't really feel like America for a while. Like, I felt like I could be in Europe or somewhere where it was like I studied abroad in Rome, and I remembered like the militiamen walking around all the time. And it made me feel like that. Like, I felt like unsafe. It was very scary. And I was not in a great relationship. And so all of these things just sort of culminated until finally COVID killed Leon, and they went under in America, and I lost my job there. And I finally was like, all right, I have no reason to continue paying these rent prices and being away from my family. My grandparents, both my mom's parents were getting older. Well, we actually lost my grandpa right during COVID. But my grandma, I was like, I just want to spend time with her. And so I moved home. And I had no job. I was on unemployment. I didn't have any clue what I was going to do next. I was very burnt out, like they said I lost my sparkle is the way they put it. But I would say depressed is like how the honest truth of it, very depressed. Just couldn't, it was like the feeling of no idea in the brain, which is very scary for an artistic creative person, because I was like, I just don't have any passion. And that was terrifying. And thank the Lord again for Tessa, because I started seeing Tessa for acupuncture and Chinese herbs, and just her presence in general, to be honest, was like so helpful. And of course, my family surrounded me with love and support. And I was so blessed to be able to take time off from work, because I had no idea what I was going to do next. And I just was living with my mom, like, so sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, it's okay. She loved having me home. It's okay. Whatever you need. We've got this together. We'll figure it out. But it was tough. I mean, it was definitely like, and we all went through some dark times during COVID, but that was just my personal journey through it. Meanwhile, I had made a connection at Leon. She was my boss there for a while. She was consulting for them. Her name's Stacy Kane. And she's been in restaurant marketing 30 plus years. That is her passion. She loves restaurant marketing. She enjoys like the fun of it, like events and promos that are unique. And she's super cool. She loves live music, and she's just like relatable and fun, and loves to inspire and like lift up younger women and help them guide on their journey. So she kind of adopted me. And as COVID was happening, she got like her contract at Leon ended. So she was kind of going through an evolution, and she was like, she started doing, she calls it fractional CMO. So she'll do like she'll be the chief marketing officer for like a certain amount of hours per month for like smaller brands. And she has around like 10 clients today that she does this for. And she just, any sort of social media writing that she needs, social media management, photography, videography, which is constant with these restaurants, she throws all of these projects to me. And it just sort of grew naturally. She started like bugging me about it when I was really depressed. And I was like, Stacey, I just like can't even do anything right now. And she's like, okay, well, let me know when you can, because I need you. Like, I have work for you. Let me know. And then, a month would go by. Are you ready? I have work for you. And finally I was like, okay, I'll do it. I need to work again. I need to figure out what I want to do again. And I went on this long road trip with my sister because she was doing travel PT, and we drove from Florida all the way out to California. And we went through we went through New Orleans and Austin and Denver and just kind of lived it up. And I was doing small remote projects as we were going for Stacey, and sort of realizing, I could do this. I could just travel and work remotely, write, which I really enjoy doing, shoot photo, create video, create content. Social media is not like my favorite thing in the world, but because it's sort of another outlet of like expression for everyone at this point, I do enjoy it. I just don't enjoy like scrolling. So I'm not the most trendy social media person, but I enjoy the copywriting, to be honest, and like the visualization of it. So I do love it in its own way. I don't love like people who get stuck on there, because it's just not healthy. But with healthy boundaries, social media can be super fun and inspiring, and it is what I do for some strange reason at this point. Yeah.
So what did you do in California?
Yes. So then my sister we get all the way out she was going to Monterey Bay, which is beautiful. Talk about like just being inspired by the views. Oh, gosh, like the 17-mile drive, and it's just heavenly. And I got all the way out there, and of course, my mom and my family were all like, all right, so are you going to get a flight back home? Like, what are you going to do now? What are your plans? And I was like, I just don't want to go home. I just want to keep going. And so I caught a flight to Honolulu, and I just kept going. And I was there for about a month. And once again, very privileged to be able to do anything like that. I have a wonderful support system, and I also had saved a lot of money and was just able to like take a little bit of a break. So I was in Hawaii, and I was hiking every day, and I was swimming and seeing sea turtles and monk seals, and just kind of remembering like what life is really about, and not like allowing the obsession of like, what do you do? Like I was getting caught up on like, okay, but what do I do with my life? And it was like, just enjoy it. Who cares like how you make money? That's not the point. For some reason, we all tie that together, but that's really not necessary. And I started kind of coming up with like, well, what could I do that would bring me money, but would also most importantly bring me daily joy? And I was even like, maybe I'll be like a scuba instructor, or like just travel. And I don't know, like I was like, maybe do a tour guide, or like I was just opening my mind up to literally anything, because I had no idea what I wanted at that point. And I did still enjoy like taking photos and videos and stuff, but my camera felt heavy, and I felt, there was a block for sure. But I started in Hawaii healing. And I went and did like a surf lesson with this random guy through like Airbnb. They have like experiences on Airbnb, and you can like hire a host to do just an activity. And I did like a surf lesson, and I did paddleboard yoga, and I was doing all these different like fun experiences. And it sort of opened my mind up to, I could do this for a living. Like I could create wellness moments, or just teach yoga in the park, or guide a hike and then do a yoga class. Like I just sort of opened my mind up to, I could just create experiences for people. And that's where like the yoga retreat idea was born. And I came back from Hawaii and I started talking to my sister about it. And she was like, you know, it's so weird. Like I was having the same, like, it's like we almost had like the same thought at the same time. And the sun and the moon was in our playroom growing up. Like my dad painted these huge sun and moon in our playroom, and we had like the little neon stars, and we just loved the name of it and the idea of connecting to nature through healing processes. And so that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah.
And did the camera eventually get lighter?
Yes. Yes. And I really truly do like have Stacy to thank for continuing. She just persistently was like, and here's another project here. I believe you can run this social media. Like I have faith in you. I know you can do it. Please take this project. And I'd be like, kind of like, do I want to do this? And then I'd be like, you know what, I'll just say yes for now. And it just kept getting more and more comfortable and more confident. And to the point where now, like I flew to Manhattan not too long ago and shot a bunch of stuff for Mamoon's Falafel. I don't know if you know them, but it's just, yes, the joy is totally back. I carry my camera like for fun now too, which I wasn't doing at the time. I think it was because I was doing it for work in DC for so long that it became almost sort of like an obligation. And then once I freed up to like freelancing, it kind of allowed me to pick up and drop projects as I felt comfortable doing it, rather than like, you're required to do this every day and on the same topic over and over, like trying to come up with new things for the same We Are Naturally Fast Food. And I loved it, but it was hard to keep that inspiration fresh for so long. So this has been great.
I had one last question before we stop, which is, and take as long as you want to answer it. I'm just wondering, with all the different things that you've done, I mean, you are definitely a creative person, and you've done a lot of different things creatively. And I'm wondering if you have developed an awareness of your own creative process. Is there a process that you find reliable for you, yourself, when you start a project, whether it be, you know, to do some promotional thing on Instagram, or you're going to go to Manhattan and take these photographs, or whatever else you're doing?
Yeah, that question is tough, because I feel that like sort of slight like imposter syndrome or like self-doubt, where you're like, am I cool enough to have a creative process? You know what I mean? But I think my process is most about first just the feeling, or like the sensation that I want the final product to have. That's like the most important thing to me. So whatever it is, like photos, videos, a retreat, anything, I think about, I call them themes. Okay. So I'll make like a list of like maybe 4 or 5 themes. And those are just like the themes that I want the whole project to like emanate. Like for the adult summer camp, my themes were like, the summer solstice is huge. Like I want it to be, that is the main carrot or whatever, like that's the core. And then next, yoga for International Day of Yoga, but like actual yogic philosophy, like pulling it into every single thing we do is yogic, not just we practice yoga, which we do, but you totally get me there. And then the last theme was the nostalgic, like kids at heart, like inner child sort of love of arts and crafts and Twister and games, the body painting, just like really allowing people to like let their freak flag fly in like the most fun and childlike ways. So I kind of start there. So those are the themes. And then I have some sort of like Virgo or like planning vibes going on, because then my next step is like, all right, now I make the detailed plans. Like I am a planner. I like to make spreadsheets. I like to have notes and to-do lists. And my sister and her girlfriend are like, there's a lot of notes. What are we like, they're seriously like, but we're lost on the notes situation. Like it's all in there. It's all in the notes. Come on now. It's not that hard, but like it just flows and you got to write it down when it's there. So that's like my most joyful. I love the planning, honestly. I think I love the planning like more than the actual doing. Like making a shot list for a shoot is way more fun to me than the actual shoot, because the shoot is when I'm like a little stressed because I'm like, I got to get this right and I have to have the vision that I got. But finding the inspiration for it and like the mood boarding moment is my favorite part.
Oh,
Cool.
I love everything that you're saying. I feel like I need to have a private consultation with you,
Oh,
particular project. So
yes.
Christine, you
Well, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you and talk about your story and, you know, this exciting upcoming event that you've got. I hope that there are so many people that can take part of in this like beautiful space and beautiful just experience that you're creating for others, and just keep going. I love it. You know, it's what it's all about.
Totally. The heart glow is what it's all about. Like I did wear my Anahata green specifically
Love
for
it.
the heart. So
Love it.
Christine, could you relate to some of the stuff that she was talking about in terms of marketing or yoga or
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because it was the same, you know, when I started my business years ago, it was waiting for the invitation and I had no intention of doing anything. I quit a job and it was the same sort of like, I'm done. And somebody came to me who I used to work with and said, I need you. And I'm like, I'm not doing that right now. And they're like, but I need you to do this. So when you're ready, just here. And it happened organically. And then I was able to, at that time, get my yoga teacher training and then get introduced to the next set of teachers that opened up a whole different world of thinking and doing that would lead you down the next path. So it's like, what did they say? Like, if you have plans for your life, like, haha, somebody's laughing up above, or the universe is laughing sometimes, because you very much get directed into whatever is next. I think in not holding on to what that path is that people expect you to take is pretty, you know, it's an interesting journey. It's definitely not linear. It's got lots of little twists and turns, but the yoga piece saved me for sure. Like I've had so many moments of like, life makes sense. And it's a way of living your life with the niyamas, that those 8 limbs and yamas, the 8 limbs of yoga that apply. There's such practical things that were written thousands of years ago with the Yoga Sutras that apply today, that I wish more people knew, just outside of the physical practice of yoga.
Totally. Yes, everything about that brings me so much joy. When I started learning about the sutras and like the niyamas and the yamas, it changed my life. It really did, because it allows you to like kind of come up above and look down at all of the, like the little trivial stuff, like what I do for work.
Right.
That's not the point at all. And I mean, I'm lucky enough to be able to have a creative job, but that's not why I'm here at all.
Yeah.
And like the social media management and stuff that I enjoy doing and that I just kind of found my way of doing is just another way of finding my way. Like it's definitely not my end goal, but it allows me to have this space to learn more about myself and grow and build this next venture. And I'm constantly learning new things every single day about yoga, about just being a better person.
Yeah, so
Thank
true.
you so much for joining us today.
Thank you all.
You are a real inspiration and such a
Aw.
joy to be with. So thank you.
Thank you, Eloise. That's very, very kind. I really appreciate it.
The truth.
Well, it was a joy. You all are such wonderful podcast hosts. I'm so excited to hear all the episodes and continue to support you, the Heart Glow.